Mayor Rotering, thank you for giving us some time. Number one, first and foremost, the deepest condolences to you and the members of the Highland Park community this morning.
Thank you, Heather.
Is there relief? Person of interest in custody this morning, Mayor?
There is absolutely relief that he is in custody following the absolute panic and shock of what had happened during our 4th of July parade. There was more fear as he was at large for several hours. People were hiding in basements of stores and gas stations. So we are relieved that he is in custody, but we are still working through our profound grief.
I would imagine, and that will be a long process indeed. As we look at the picture of the suspect there, is he someone with whom you were familiar?
I knew him when he was a little boy. He was a Cub Scout, and I was in charge of the Cub Scouts. He was a very sweet, quiet little boy, and clearly something has happened to put him in this position. It's really horrifying.
Well, it is. I mean, to say the least. Sweet and quiet. Isn't that extraordinary? Particularly when you look on what we're hearing about his social media presence at this time. Have you seen that, Mayor Rotering?
I've seen a little bit. I haven't seen a lot. Yesterday was a day filled with investigation and tracking him down more than looking at his social media on my part, and also getting reports of who in the community had been impacted directly and frankly within range of the situation. But as you know, this is a fairly unique American issue. We all know that people post things throughout the world. People have anger, people have mental health issues. Only in America are they able to legally obtain a weapon of war.
And unfortunately, that arrived in your community yesterday. And I do want to spend time talking about the victims, just if I could, because we're trying to get any further detail on the investigation. Perhaps you have some further information. He's considered or named to this point a person of interest. Is he, to your knowledge, someone who is a formal suspect who will be charged formally?
My understanding is that there will be a conference later this afternoon discussing charges. And I think that's all I can say at this point.
And as far as where there was a weapon recovered on the roof, you have been quoted in some other media reports that, to your understanding, he got that weapon legally, Mayor Rotary.
Correct. And again, this is a point that I think American leadership needs to look at. Why is it that pretty much every week we are now having a mass shooting using a weapon that was obtained legally? That tells me that the laws aren't working and we need to do more to protect everybody in this country.
You knew the suspect. He was a Cub Scout when you were a Cub leader. I dare say in your community you probably have personal ties to the victims. Can you share any of their stories with us today?
Out of respect for their families, I would rather not. I have reached out to several to check on those who are in the hospital, on their well-being and what the state of their injuries are. There are stories that will haunt me for the rest of my life that came out of yesterday's shooting. It's absolutely heartbreaking.
And 30 wounded, and we understood that a number of them were in critical condition. That was the latest update we heard from hospital officials. Do you have any more detail in terms of really guess the medical status of those who were wounded yesterday?
I think it covers the full spectrum, and I think it's important for people to recognize the absolute violence that these weapons bring to any community, to know the extent of these injuries, of people who merely were sitting on the side of their hometown street watching a celebration of freedom. It's just, people need to know. This is unbelievably unacceptable. And here we are, you know, decades after Newtown, Connecticut. I just can't fathom why people think that this is an okay way to live.
Where were you personally, Mayor Rotering, in relation to the shooting scene?
We had just, my city council and I had just passed the intersection and we're heading down the hill for sort of the last stretch. And I couldn't understand why the high school marching band was racing down the sidewalk. And then immediately thereafter, police cars were racing literally into the parade. It just didn't connect for me. I thought, oh, maybe the band was late for a performance. Oh, maybe somebody had a heart attack up the hill. You just can't think that somebody is shooting people in the middle of our town. It took a long time to process. It turned immediately from a celebration to an evacuation. And people along the parade route were like, what do you mean we have to evacuate? And we were like, you have to run, leave your belongings, go, go, go. And then there was a festival in the park just to the right of the parade route, and we went racing over there to get those folks out, because we didn't know if it was one shooter, multiple shooters, where he was, where they were. They were at large. We knew it was still an active shooter situation. It was complete chaos, and then followed by just devastating heartbreak.
The images of, as you say, of people fleeing for their lives, you know, the carriages and the chairs, really, really searing images as we looked at it after the fact. I'm wondering, I mean, obviously we've heard some of your thoughts on gun violence, but just in general, and again, maybe from a personal sense, 24 hours after that revelation that this had been visited upon your community, how are you feeling today?
I'm sick. I'm nauseous. And I keep thanking my lucky stars. My husband was right there. Family, friends were right there. They went to provide aid to some of the victims immediately after the shooting. It's just one of those things where I know our community will take a long time to heal. We will all be here for each other. This is a community where people grow up, they leave, they come back, they raise their children, their grandparents are here. We care deeply about each other, and we've received so many outpourings of resources and care and condolences locally from across the nation. We appreciate all of that, but we have a long road ahead of us.
How will you lead your community through this time?
As I always have led my community, through love and care. We are a family, and we will always be a family. So our family has been deeply, deeply wounded right now, and we will come together. We are so appreciative of the folks who showed up with food yesterday, who are offering to help the victims' families. The members of the clergy who are going to hold an event this evening to sort of help bring peace of mind back to the community. Counseling has already started at the local high school. There are a lot of pieces to this. Unfortunately, this is such a classic American experience that there's a handbook that has been sent to me by several mayors of what to do after your city experiences a mass shooting. And we will be looking at their experiences and moving forward based on what has happened far too many times in this country.
That is an extraordinary fact, that there is a handbook which you have received. You've mentioned the support from so many places in the country, many wishes, many condolences, and much support from Canada as well. Thank you very much for speaking to me this morning, and Godspeed as you tackle these next days ahead.
Thank you so much, Heather. Appreciate it.